So if you for some reason clicked on this video, it is not unlikely that you have seen the polyglot investigation videos that the YouTuber Evildia has recently been running on his channel. Honestly, I haven't personally been watching very much of his actual analysis. I kind of just read through the little Google documents because I find it tells you all you really need to know. Unsurprisingly, people who study like 10 different languages don't tend to speak those languages all that well. These people frustrate me. Okay, but probably not for the reason that you might expect. Grifting with skills that you don't have is pretty fucking devious, and you should not do it. But even if these people have all the skills that they claim to have, I still don't think that they're actually contributing very much value to the world. The standard is just way too low, and that is what I want to talk about. There are some very, very good reasons to study a foreign language. You can develop deep and meaningful relationships with people from cultures vastly different from your own, enriching your own life and the lives of many around you. You can expand your professional network and reach into job markets that you previously did not have access to. And you can view complex concepts and ideas from a completely different lens, deepening your understanding of them and broadening your perspective on the world. Be that as it may, the language proficiency needed in order to actually do these things effectively is, in my opinion, really, really high. And it is very rarely achieved by people who start learning after their critical period for language acquisition. For most people, it will take many, many years of study to reach the standard of fluency that I've personally set for myself. I'm in my third year studying Mandarin, and judging by numbers alone, I'm probably a little over a third of the way there. I'm willing and I am intending to take this journey all the way, all right? What I find interesting, though, is that a lot of people on the internet are willing to do like 5% of this journey and then stop and then switch languages and do it again. And they do this over and over for lots of languages. I don't really understand why. So my point is not to highlight that hyper-polyglots suck at all the languages they speak, or that what they've achieved is not difficult, because it probably is, okay? It's probably not that easy to speak like 10 different languages at a B1 level. It's just that you're not going to be able to use these languages to do very many things that I personally find valuable. Speaking a language at a low level provides some benefits, but I find them all to be kind of superficial. Probably the most notable thing that you'll be able to do is just show off. Like show off the fact that you speak a language at a low level. In my experience, the bar for getting positive attention offline, online, from native speakers or non-native speakers alike is frankly quite low, okay? Once you pass that proficiency threshold where you're able to get attention, which will happen very early on, it will unfortunately take a very long time before the more profound benefits of language learning start to kick in. My assumption is that's a very hard pill to swallow for a lot of learners, so what they'd rather do is stop very early on and go for the shock value again in another language. Here's the thing though, alright? Impressive as it may be, it really does not feel very good to speak a language that you're not good at yet. When I speak English, I feel that I'm using it often quite seamlessly as a medium to pass along my thoughts to other people. My English is good enough that I feel that I can put any conceivable thought or idea that I may experience into words which others who share my proficiency will be able to understand and appreciate. In fact, some people might argue that it is precisely my grasp of my native language that is providing some sort of scope inside of which I can experience ideas and outside of which I cannot. A slightly looser version of this hypothesis is something like all of the things that I know about or understand tend to line up pretty well with the things that I'm capable of expressing in my native language. That said, regardless of whether or not English is enforcing limits on my cognition, my Chinese is not even fucking close to that limit, okay? Speaking a language with an active vocabulary significantly smaller than that of your native language kind of feels like trying to sketch a very intricate and detailed image with a very fat Sharpie. When I speak Mandarin Chinese, I have to constantly compromise the complexity and subtlety of my ideas as to be compatible with the tools that I have available to express them, to the point that when they eventually do come out, I don't always feel that I can fully stand behind what I said. Oftentimes, when I speak Chinese, even though the sentences that come out are perfectly acceptable, good Chinese, they may not be accurately representing the thoughts which I initially meant to communicate. It's just the closest that I could get with the tools that I currently have. And even more frustrating is that the listener is fully unaware that you're experiencing this dissonance. This feeling sucks, but I think that it is there for a pretty good reason. I have a strong desire to speak accurately because I want to share my thoughts and feelings. When I am unable to do so, it is uncomfortable and frustrating. If you speak a language with an expressive ability lower than that of your native language and you don't experience this feeling, I can only assume that it's because you don't actually care about accurately representing your thoughts and opinions. You're just speaking for the sake of speaking itself. It could also be that when you speak a foreign language, your brain suddenly snaps into a different mode, and suddenly the foreign language is the thing that is enforcing limits on your cognition, though I find this extremely unlikely. To be clear, this phenomenon exists for comprehension as well. If someone is speaking to you in a foreign language and they tell you something that you don't really understand, they'll likely be able to switch up or simplify their language in order to find something that you do find comprehensible. You may think, well, that's no big deal. It took a little bit longer, but ultimately the communication was successful. But to me, unless the person I'm speaking to literally teaches me the Chinese that I'm missing in order to understand their original sentiment, any alternate route that they take to communicate their idea is ultimately a compromised and likely watered down version of what they initially wanted to say to me. In my opinion, this is not an instance of successful communication because I was not proficient enough to comprehend the message that the speaker tried to send my way. Assuming that the speaker cares about their ideas, as I do my own, having to accommodate for my lack of proficiency is probably frustrating. If you want to set something like B1 as your standard for language fluency, I think that that's fine, but ultimately you're measuring from the perspective of the listener rather than from the speaker themselves. When I speak Chinese, I may seem fluent from other people's perspective, but I assure you that it does not feel that way from mine. Fluency is really a feeling, and honestly, I don't think that it can be easily tested out of someone. Only you can decide in good faith whether or not you're capable of expressing anything that you want to express. Think about it this way. Whenever you're learning a foreign language, there is a set of concepts, notions, and ideas which your current knowledge of vocabulary and grammar allows you to communicate and comprehend. There's also a set of concepts, notions, and ideas that you are capable of conceiving of. For me, in Chinese, until the first set is as big, or at least almost as big as the second set, I'm not going to call myself fluent. Why? Because even if I look fluent to an outsider, the disparity between these sets will prevent me from feeling that way. If you are learning foreign languages to a B1 level, and then you're deciding that that is enough and you're moving on to the next, I can only assume that you're operating under one of two potential circumstances. The first is that you have some genuine need for simple communication skills in multiple different languages. And I guess this could be useful if you're traveling all over the world and you want to learn some of the local language for convenience sake. You can speak with the locals and you'll probably impress them and those around you, but you won't be able to develop deep, genuine connections with them in the way that you can with your native language. The second circumstance is that you're motivated by a mechanism separate from communication entirely. You're more interested in being identified as a speaker of a language than you are in actually using that language at all.